Now, lifeadministration.com presents the Life Administration Podcast. Here are your hosts, Leslie Loftus and Ryan Taylor.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Life Administration Podcast. My name is Ryan Talon, and with me, as always,
Leslie Loftus. Hello, everybody. I just knocked my mic.
That's it. Mark for edit. We're already. You're bumping microphones.
I'm bumping microphones. Which brings up a sound issue we're most likely gonna have.
Guaranteed. So,
yes.
I'm asking for forgiveness because, as you guys know, in this house we have currently 6 people. And everybody is using some sort of technology right now.
We're at the distance learning portion of the school start. So I've got everyone spread out over the house. It's not quiet.
No, it's not quiet.
It's not quiet.
So there most likely will be dogs barking. There could be kid Skype or...
Right. You might hear one of them is an orchestra with her bass downstairs. You might hear some music. There's another one that's just down in the room below us, but that's where he needs to work.
Yep.
And I think he's in science class, so we might hear a teacher. But one thing on the dogs barking, okay, so everybody at this point probably knows that Zoom has the little ding dong. Like, so when you get let into the classroom or the conference, ding dong. First couple of times, the dogs flipped out.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Now they've heard the ding dong so much, even the dogs have stopped reacting.
Like, okay, we get it.
It was crazy. For the first hour or so, I thought I was going to go mad. And then after that, they're like, it doesn't do anything. So
yeah,
they've stopped barking.
I can empathize with the distance learning and our parents and people that are working from home and all that sort of stuff. So my hat is off to you.
So Brian actually warned me a little bit because a lot of his clients had started, say, the week before we started. He's like, just so you know, just brace. It's going to be the first couple of days of distance learning. Now that everybody's kind of, because at first when we were back in spring, and it was new distance learning. Well, there wasn't that much. I mean, let's face it, there wasn't that much learning going on because
they didn't have the tools set up.
Right. We didn't. Now we have the tools set up, but the tools are getting field tested for the first time and it's not going well.
Yeah. The first week is rough, is super rough. So I have to get this off my chest before we start.
Uh-oh. He told me, I don't know what it is that he's getting ready to talk about, but
as I will reiterate, I am on the thriftier side of things.
He is.
So my wife and I had this, coffee table from IKEA. It's called the Lack. If you want to go ahead and look it up, it's called the Lack from IKEA. And we had sort of felt like it had outlived its usefulness. We were looking for something a little bit smaller because we're having more people in our house and we wanted a little bit more foot room and that sort of thing.
Maneuverability around the furniture and stuff. So we should do an episode on furniture placement.
We should.
Okay.
Write it down.
Write it down. I am going to. We were just talking about this. If I don't write it down when it pops into my head,
it's lost in the ether.
Right, exactly.
So we decide that we're going to sell this table. So we sell it on Nextdoor, which is, people are familiar with. We sell it on Nextdoor. We get, 30 something bucks for it, whatever. And then for the past month, I've had probably 4 different coffee tables come into the house, right? So we buy a coffee table, doesn't work, send it back. Amazon's great for that because it's just like, nope, we don't like it. Back it goes. So finally, after going through all of these coffee tables, my wife decides, I want the Lack back. I want the one that we sold. I want it now. So on IKEA, to go buy it brand new, I can't get behind that, right? Because it's like, no, we're not taking up.
So are you now searching like Facebook Marketplace for the coffee table? Not the exact one you sold, but
hold on.
Oh.
So yesterday or 2 days ago, Lauren finds the exact coffee table on Facebook Marketplace. Now, I have done many, many Nextdoor Facebook Marketplace pickups. Yesterday was like something I had never experienced. So I'm getting the information from the person. Here's my address. Well, first off, it's in an apartment building. Second off, it's It's gated, so you can't get in. So I have to she's having trouble opening the gate. So I have to, basically Knight Rider in behind somebody. And
go
lastly, go Kit. And lastly, I was driving my wife's car because my wife was under the impression that we would be able to take this coffee table apart. Like the legs were going to come off.
Like it did on yours.
Right.
Somebody
so I don't know
if
they super glued them or whatnot. So this apartment's on the 3rd floor. Okay, hold on. So this apartment's on the 3rd floor.
Pivot.
Right?
That's all I can think.
Oh yeah. Right. And yesterday it's hot. It's like heat index of 108.
It
right.
Was. Yesterday was
nasty. Hot. So I finally find the building and she gives me the apartment number 438 because it's building 4. Now I know that the 3 stands for the 3rd floor. Right.
At least it's not the, okay.
So I knock on the door. I wait for I've been talking to this person for the past 15 minutes via message. I knock on the door and it's like they're surprised to see me. I get this coffee table and the
legs don't come off.
The legs don't come off and it's filthy and it looks like absolute trash and no one can help me take it down these flights of stairs. So I grabbed this coffee table, and like I said, if you want to look it up, you can look it up.
I mean, it's IKEA furniture, which means particle board and something. Well, 2 things you should know about particle board. 1, it expands in water. Don't ever get it wet. 2, it's heavy.
It was very heavy.
Heavy.
It was very heavy. Right. So I navigate this thing by myself down the 3 stairs. Right. And I have nothing to move this thing. I'm trying not to.
3 stairs, 3 flights of stairs.
3 flights of stairs.
Yeah,
Yep. I'm sorry. I misspoke. I blacked out yesterday. And so then I have to get it into my car, which was like playing Tetris at an expert level.
With a really heavy giant piece.
I try to put it in the trunk. Doesn't fit in the trunk. I'm trying to take the legs off. The legs are glued on. I finally figure out a way to navigate it to put it into the back seat and pivot it and get it into the front seat. So I'm driving down the road and I've made it.
At least it wasn't that far, right?
No, it wasn't that far. It was probably 10 to 15 minutes from my house. But my car thinks that someone's in the passenger seat. And so I have the ding, 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 ding over and over and over and over again. And y'all, this thing smelled so bad that I was one of the people that I was wearing, and no offense, but I was wearing the mask inside the car. You know what I'm saying? Because I couldn't stand the smell of this thing. So lesson learned there.
Okay. Is there a punchline to this to the effect that Lauren was like, this is gross and it's not coming in my house? Or did it just get bleached?
It is currently sitting in our driveway right now at this very moment.
Getting sunshine.
Hopefully to air out. If you can air out a coffee table, I don't know. It's got to be cleaned. It's got to be touched up. But the grass isn't always greener on the other side, folks. Sometimes you just go with what you got.
Okay. So. And I have a life administration thing for this that we'll use for the furniture placement thing later, but I'll mention it here since it's relevant.
Yes.
This is honestly, Peyton, one of my daughters, is a little vexed with me right now because when at the new house on the river and here, I used all the old furniture that we had from I didn't go in and immediately say, oh, okay, I need to get this kind of I am not a designer. I don't do this on a regular. I don't always have I need 3 feet clearance between this item and this item. So my cheat for that is I will use the things that I have as stand-ins and, okay, well, I generally want something that's going to be 5 feet here. So what do I have in the house that's 5 feet that I can make, or even just tape on the floor? Yeah, because there's a lot of that. Because you think, oh my gosh, I want, a smaller coffee table or whatever, and then it just doesn't work. But figure out the details of what works for your space before you make the purchases.
I have measured out and taped off. But until it's there, because it's 3D. It's 3D. Yep. That's why I've totally used benches instead of coffee tables, stuff like that, just to place them in front of the item that I want, just to see, is this too long? Is this too short? Is this going to work? Yep. It was a rough day yesterday. Plus, like our battery was about to die, so like that was a whole nother thing where I had to go.
Battery?
Yep, had to go get another battery. I went to turn the car over. It was like whoop whoop whoop. And then it started, and I thought, oh, let me test this thing. So yesterday was just one of those days where it's always something else. Like I needed to do about 4 hours of work. I got 2 done, and that was that.
And it always happens in August. I mean, what is it about August in Texas? Is really, really hot right now. What is it about August? Invites all of the crazy. That's when your AC goes out and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. And we're helping my mother-in-law move next weekend, right? Which is
partially good news.
But it's going to be hot,
right, but
and there'll be more,
hot,
right?
Yeah.
So Lauren said I was hunched over all day yesterday from
just mental stress.
Yeah. I think my back was basically crying out in anguish. In any case, today's episode, speaking about being cheap,
banking
is about banking. And basic banking. And so if you've never gone, so here's the thing is that a lot of times, like at least when I was younger, I had like an allowance and things, but it wasn't until I was early 20s that I really sort of, I don't even want to say understood the concept of like banking. What's the difference between a regular bank and a credit union? Understanding like you should use a checking account and a savings account. I didn't really know any of that. It's like I got my account. I had my little book back in the day, right? And you like made a payment.
You still get those, yeah.
Yep.
It's called a checkbook.
Yep. I got my is that what it's called?
Seriously?
No, I'm just kidding.
You're just pulling my chain.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent.
Yes, but I got the book and I balanced it out and the whole thing. And, I didn't really understand the concept of what it all entailed. And now I think there are so many different options where, you don't even have to have a physical bank anymore. You can have like online banking, right? Where you can use, like, you don't have to even go to a branch, and there's credit unions. Like so really kind of decoding some of these concepts, I think is really important. And also understanding that even in the most basic purchases, you can get your money to be working for you. And so we're going to talk about like what to be looking for, right?
Right.
So I've teed it up.
There we go.
Swing the bat, Leslie. It's all yours.
All right. First of all, setting up an account. This is the basic of most basic life administration things. I recommend finding a bank based upon word of mouth recommendations. Again, I mean, I don't know how many times we say this. Find somebody who has been there before, who you trust, and if they've given you a good recommendation on doctors and stuff, and they've given you a good recommendation on, I don't know, which grocery store and cleaners to use, ask them who they use for bank aid and if they like it, because there's a lot of inertia in banking. So, let's say you set up your banking relationship 20 years ago when you started at this company, and your company had a relationship with that bank and stuff. And the next thing you know, you're still using that bank, but you're not really getting anything out of the relationship. Yeah, exactly. So one of the reasons we're talking about this now is that my husband and I have just switched banking situations as well. If you have the advantage that you are just starting out, do ask around, and also look on some online reviews and stuff. Try to pay attention. The younger ones are probably much more savvy about noticing form reviews and spam reviews than I am. But, try to weed those out, but pay attention to who's really got details about this bank really works for me. The people are helpful. These days, you want a lot of good online services.
Yes.
You want the ability to set up auto pays and direct deposits and do wires and stuff. You want that to be as seamless and as user-friendly as possible once you set it up. Because here's the other thing. Setting all of that stuff up takes a lot more time at the beginning to get it right. So if you're getting with a bank that knows how to do that stuff well, it's probably going to be a bit of a pain in the butt to set it up to start.
Yeah. Right. So I want to say, my own personal experience here is that I think banks they understand that the more that you put into it, the harder it is to change banks, right? So the more auto pays that you have set up, the more information I got to change my card number.
And my mortgages with them, and my car loan,
and so they're always going to be trying to give you new services because they know that the more services that they have, the more latched on you are to that particular bank. And so my word of caution that I didn't really get into so much until my late 20s is it's okay to work with two separate banks as well. And so I have my sort of general,
especially when you're younger and your finances aren't as complicated.
Right.
Because then you can kind of test, okay, I found two that I like, kind of test drive them.
Yep. And so and what I found is that Wells Fargo has basically nothing in the regards to rewards and loyalty, but I have like my bill pay set up through all of that, that sort of thing. I now have started to transition to a credit union because their loyalty for just using and we'll get into this, but loyalty points or cashback or whatever for just using regular debit card transactions is far better. However, their online banking platform is non-existent. I mean, so it is existent. However, it's very cumbersome. I mean, that's the only word that I can, going going there and trying
5 to make
required
when 2 should do.
Right. Yeah. Like a loan payment is like trying to decipher the matrix. It's like, it's the only way I can explain it. And it's like, there's 8, the website looks like it was made in 1990. Like I could make a better website in my sleep than what they have going on. And I understand, but listen, so you have to find what like works for you. You know what I mean? You have to find what makes sense for your particular situation. So in my situation, having something that is online savvy, Wells Fargo, that I can then transfer money over into my First Service credit union account, that makes things a lot better. So don't be afraid to do that. Right. Now, going back, so I just want to circle back really quick, knowing that the more information that they have, the harder it is to sever ties. Listen, it does take some time to set up some new things, it's not nearly as daunting as it once was, I mean, I don't know about you, but
I've just done it. And actually it's in the third section. We're going to talk about some of that. Exactly. Because it's not as difficult as it used to be by far.
Yeah.
I mean, really the hardest part in this is what you miss.
Yeah.
Like it took me 25 years of 20. Well, I joined in with my husband's account and he'd been with them longer. So 25 years of a banking relationship. The actual transferring over took me a couple of hours one afternoon.
Yep.
But there were a couple of auto pays and stuff that I missed. Right. And that because it's on auto pay. You don't think about it, and I also knew that. So, we'll just do this part. I also knew that there was going to be some straggly stuff like that I hadn't thought of. And, the $50 payment to this subscription that I have for this magazine that I've forgotten that comes out of auto pay and is not on a credit card. I left some money in the older account to cover that kind of thing.
That chicanery.
Exactly. But honestly, I'm going to say it probably takes in total about a month to transfer over. And really, that's not that bad. I mean, it used to be. I mean, you had to go in and you had to sign things. And as you were just talking about, even setting up your first bank account doesn't necessarily require you go in and sign anything now, because we have this lovely thing called DocuSign that. Now you're going to have to send. The bankers will send you over secured file. So basically a secured Dropbox where you would stick your driver's license, so you are going to have to turn in some of that stuff. If your bank doesn't have those kind of online services, then yes, for the initial setup, you probably need to go in. You're going to need multiple forms of ID. You're going to have to sign a lot of things. There's, initial setups, making sure that you've got your paycheck, your main paycheck in particular, coming in to the right account. All of that initial setup takes a little bit of time.
Yeah. So also when it comes to setting up an account, again, I'm always like, how can you get the most for setting up a bank account? Most of the time when you get mail from banks, like people will just take it and throw it away. But every once in a while, there'll be something in there that'll say, hey, if you open up an account with us, we'll match, we'll throw in $500 if you have direct deposit, right? There's going to always be these little things that kind of lure you in.
And once again, like you said, they want to get, so if you have direct deposit, because then now it's a convenience factor, and getting moving your direct deposit can be a bit of a pain.
Right.
So if they can get you hooked in on that, well then,
yeah.
They've got you on it.
Yep.
But so yes, you can sometimes find perks like that.
And you have to, and so you have to find what you're comfortable with, right? So it might be, we give you perks if you bring, and this is sort of outside the scope of this conversation, but like a 401k, if you roll over a 401k or something like that. If you do all these different types of accounts, I can remember that when I opened up Wells Fargo, I mean, at the time it was, free checking is kind of the norm now, right. but back then it wasn't the norm. You used to have
fees for a checking account.
Yeah.
So they would be $25-$50 a month for running your checking account, because that used to be more complicated. They had to staff up a bit because they didn't have computers that could scan the checks.
Right. You couldn't take a picture of it.
You couldn't take a picture. Yeah. Because I didn't even know that existed until a few weeks ago. You can apparently take a picture of your check and say, oh my good, seriously, didn't know that. I'm a Gen Xer. I'm a Gen Xer. Did not know. Right. But that used to all have to, to the point that you had a signature card on file. And when your check came in, they had people that would check to make sure that the signature matched up. Okay. That, even if you're doing it really quickly, that's a time intensive process. If you're talking about all the checks that come through, say Wells Fargo branch 1 in a day. So there used to be fees associated with that. Well, and even before that, this was checking accounts. If you set up a checking account or certain savings accounts, you would get interest.
Yes.
That really doesn't. That would be the gold standard. If you get a mailing that says, first of all, that would almost fall into the category of too good to be true, that you got a mailing saying, if you open an account with us, we'll give you 2% interest on your checking account. One, hold on to that, check it out, verify.
Yep.
And also, if you're going to do any of these things, you get, there's let's see, if I open at JP Morgan, there's this, call up a friend or two and find, don't just be intrigued by the mailer that you got.
Right.
But research it first. Because you don't want to switch on a whim.
Yep.
And then find out it really wasn't, or it only lasted for 6 months and something like that. Goodness gracious.
Because if you turn that impressive, flashy mailer over, on the backside, there will be all of this fine print on there that will be stipulations and regulations. So what was exactly what happened to me? It was open up a free checking account, but it wasn't free. What you had to do is you actually had to have a checking account, and then you had to have what they called at the time a bill account and a savings account, and money from checking had to be monthly transferred into the bill account, right? That was the stipulation. If you didn't do that every month, then you got dinged. Right. So then I had to go in, set an automatic transfer up, this, that, and the other thing. And to this day, I still have to do that. And which is why I'm I need to switch banks.
Yeah, because now free checking is, that's like having a cellular phone plan from 2010 and not ever having updated it, and only to find out you're paying $100 for 1 gig of data or something. It's just, wow.
How many minutes do I have?
Exactly. That's just not a question anybody has to ask anymore because it's become ubiquitous. Yeah. Free checking is now ubiquitous. Sadly, interest-bearing accounts, not so much. But I would advise people to search, use the internet, and then call and find out, using the recommendation of someone that's been there, that especially is financially savvy. I think you're going to stick with this relationship for a long time.
You hope so.
Do a little research on it.
You hope so.
Do a little research on it.
It's almost like a marriage.
It's almost like and it comes up so conveniently, and you think, oh, this is great. My company has this relationship with it, but then you're not with that company anymore,
right?
Or that bank gets bought out.
Yep. It happens.
It all happens, and so we kind of think that this is all convenient, and it's just, I'll just set this up here. And then 20 years go by, and it's I'm not really getting anything out of this relationship. Except for a pain in the butt and every time I try to make auto pays.
Right. So before we sort of move into the different kinds of accounts, I want, and we touched upon it earlier, but having a banker that knows you and your life, what your, I don't want to say goals are, but goals, like what you're trying to, we're not talking like a financial advisor, but just someone that's familiar with you and your situation instead of just like some random person that you have to talk to every time that you explain. That is so valuable that you can like, hey, you call the bank, transfer me to Robert. Robert knows my deal, right? Robert picks up the phone. Oh, hey, Ryan, he knows I'm a self-employed.
He knows you're right. Or he knows you're an accountant. And so, it's April and, stupid things knows not to bug you with dumb things in April because, well, you're an accountant. Or,
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or my situation, self-employed, how I have to do my taxes when I'm thinking about making some changes, I'm kind of like talking to my accountant and I'm talking to my banker to see like how those things sort of line up. So you want a banker to be easily touchable, like high touch, but you don't want them to bother you with stuff.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
It's a balance. Yep. It's total balance.
Yeah. It's like you want to be able to reach out to them, but if I don't need you, like don't bother me. Right. And so just going in and establishing that relationship. Now, I will tell you that if you're at a bank that's smaller, i.e. a credit union, that's really easy to have. That's really easy to have. If you're at a bank that's like Wells Fargo, people are rotating in and out of there all the time. A lot of times they're always going to be trying to push new products on you. Oh, have you opened up this credit card? Have you used this type of account? This, that, and the other thing. And you're always like, it's such a hassle. I don't want to go in there and feel like I'm dealing with. If you're
spending more time rejecting emails and promotions than you are actually maintaining your accounts.
That's aggravating. Yeah, that's aggravating. So find that, whatever that looks like for you, find that person that you click with and say, hey, I want you to be my point man. And, because when you do need new accounts and when you do need new things, they know, or they should know, that you're going to go to them to get it, right? Like you're building a long-term lasting relationship that's not just like today. Yes, I might be opening up a free checking account, but in 5 years from now, when I bought Amazon, when it was whatever, right? And now I have all this money and I got to diversify and do all these things. That person will hopefully be your go-to. So I don't want to ramble on that.
And by the way, once you get to a certain level, when you have extra funds, you don't necessarily want cash sitting there idly.
No.
And obviously this is an advance to later on. This is after your student loans are paid.
Yes. People right now are like, so I still have $75,000.
Yes, exactly. But something to think about for the future. Then you do want a little bit of bugging.
Yes.
Right. Because but by that point, you've been with the bank for 10, 15, 20 years and you've built a bit of a relationship and they know you're in that growth period. They know you're in that interested in investment kind of thing. And by then they should know when to call you and when not.
Yep, exactly. Because you formed the relationship by that point, right? Okay, cool. Let's get into the different types of accounts. Let's talk about the difference between savings and checking.
Okay. These days, most people just get checking accounts and, they're pretty much the same because savings accounts rarely have much in the way of interest. So it used to be savings account were where you parked money to have it gain a little bit of interest. It's not quite a CD because a CD, a certificate of deposit, is when you deposit money in a certain account to gain, say, 3% interest. I'm just ballparking here. I can't remember. But you agree to put that money in there for 6 months or 12 months or 36 months, whatever. CDs are usually sort of shortest term, maybe 3 years or less. But the money's locked in. So if you stick something in a certificate of deposit, you agree that you are going to leave that $1,000 there for 12 months. Okay. Savings accounts are a little different because savings account, you're still sticking the $12,000 or the $1,000 in, but you can pull it out and you can use it like it's cash. Think of it as kind of a cash drawer. It's not cash you have at home hidden under your mattress or in your wallet, but it's cash that you don't have to give any advance notice to the bank or something that you're going to pull out. It's liquid.
Yep.
Right.
And just so you know, like when we're talking about like your interest that you're getting on a savings account, it's small, right? It's, right.
It didn't used to be that way.
Yeah,
it used to be bigger.
It used to have full percentage points, right? 2%, whatever. Now, like I just did a quick like, what are the best rates September 2020, and I mean it's 0.5, 0.6,
right,
0.9. Which again, if you don't have anything going on, is better than
nothing.
It's not nothing, right? You know, if you got whatever at 0.9%, or we'll just say 1%. If you got $10,000, it's an extra $100 in your pocket at the end of the year. You know what I mean? Which is, again, better than nothing. But you don't just leave money. I guess what I'm trying to say is don't just leave money in your checking account. When I was younger, I would my checking account number would grow and I'd be like, wow, last month it was at 5,000 and this month it's at 8,000. And I would get this sort of cool dopamine blowout in my brain of look how much money I've made. Right. But little did I know that,
in your checking account, it gains nothing. So
zero.
If you have 8,000 in your checking account and you're only using 4,000 a month,
exactly,
you can move the other. Actually leave a little extra in your checking account. You can move 3,000 of that idle 4,000 into a savings account to get a little bit more, to get a little return on interest.
Yeah.
Okay. Most people are living a little more tightly on their monthly, either that or they're moving the extra $3,000 into some sort of investment or mutual fund or what. Now, that's not as fluid as a saving account.
No.
Right. But we'll get to mutual funds in a second. So checking accounts are very similar to savings accounts, except I don't know of any anymore that have interest or that pay interest. And then you can actually write checks, or really you can do your auto bills, so your auto drafts for everything from your mortgage to your credit cards, all of that kind of stuff, that can come out of your checking account. They are named because it used to be the account that was pegged to the actual book of checks that you got. And every once in a while you will run into, say, some usually older, artisan, tradesperson, whatever, that I'm sorry, we only take checks.
Oh.
Yeah, it happens. Just happened to me last week.
Actually, just happened with the table.
With the table,
I had to lean back because I'm so aggravated because I'm like, can I Venmo you? Can I PayPal you? Can I Zelle you? No, we can't do that. So I have to go to the table was $30. I had to go to the ATM. I had to. Sorry, I'm venting again. This is so fresh on my mind. And I go to the ATM and I type in $30. Dumb. We only give it out in 20s, right? So they give me $40. So now I'm like, okay.
But now you don't have change because they give you $2.20.
I don't have change. So what do I have to do? I got to go to McDonald's and buy myself a double cheeseburger because I was feeling.
By the way,
hungry.
this used to be normal.
Yep.
This was totally not so if you needed $30, you needed to drive down to the gas station with the ATM and get it was a pain in the butt. Now you don't have, and by the way, your checking account, the Venmo, the PayPal, all that's pegged to your checking account.
Yes.
So when you're setting it up to a bank account, that'll be your checking account.
Yep.
There is an option sometimes in those to peg it to savings accounts, but it has some limitations because again, savings accounts are slightly different beasts in a way that's almost archaic now. I mean, really, they could merge savings accounts and checking accounts and we would all be much happier, right?
Yes. And I will just tell you.
I mean, I would take 0.5% on my checking account. Happily.
Oh yeah.
Happily.
But banks
aren't dumb.
As we were talking, I'm looking through and it's like 0.1.
Yeah.
Right.
Checking accounts don't get
and PS, as I scroll through, because I'm just, trying to point out some things. If you bank with Chase, just know that there is a $12 monthly fee still for their total checking. There are ways to waive it, but if you just so you know, of all the banks, they're the only one that still has it. It can be waived with a direct deposit of $1,500 or more. But as a self-employed person, I don't have that.
You don't have that.
So do your research.
Absolutely.
See what makes the most sense for you.
Okay, so the other thing that you might have through your banking institution is something like mutual funds. So basically funds of stock accounts. This is not as locked in as a CD. So you don't put, you don't say, okay, put 2,000 in that mutual fund for 6 months. You put 2,000 in that mutual fund. Now, unlike a savings account and certainly unlike a checking account, if you want that $2,000 or whatever that 2,000 has become, let's say it's made a little bit of money for you, which is why a lot of people don't use savings accounts because they'd rather put it in their bank's mutual fund. And it doesn't take that much longer to get the money back out than it would to transfer from a savings account. But you need about 3 days.
Yep.
Realistic, because you need to put in the order to sell those funds and then to have the money transferred to your account. if you need the cash from a mutual fund account, you need a couple of days to do it.
Yep.
And after you've gotten all this stuff set up. This is after you've got everything set. You've got your banker relationship, so you can make the phone call and say, hey, can I talk to Jane? And they put you in touch with Jane. And hey, Jane, I want to go ahead and sell it. Jane will most likely have to hang up and call you back because they need to be able to say that we called them, and then it's a recorded call, because you have to have this information official. Yes. Do I have permission to sell or to buy? That yes, you do. So it takes a little longer to get money out of a mutual fund, but usually those have a much bigger return than savings account do.
Yeah, you typically are in percentage point land, right? So you're not dealing with decimal points anymore. You're not 0.1, 0.9. Right. You're typically on but
the good ones beat the Dow.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, and by the way, everybody, just we're in early September 2020 now.
Yep.
And they just changed the makeup of the Dow. So Exxon and two others are off, and some others are in.
Right.
Partially because Apple did a stock split. And anyway, the Dow was becoming...
what is the Dow for people that may not be informed?
The Dow Jones Industrial Average. So it's a index of, 30 or 50 companies? Is it 30 companies? I can't remember off the top of my... Anyway, it's some of the major companies that are traded on the stock exchange, the U.S. stock exchange. And so it's an average of how those companies are doing. So it's usually what we see when somebody's talking about the stock market's up, the stock market's down. They're taking the Dow companies as a whole and saying, okay, they're going up and they're going down. And those are generally a good representation of how the stock market and how the economy is doing. Now, it is rare that a company falls off or gets onto the Dow. And so the fact that last week they just flipped 3 companies is kind of a big deal.
Yep. And it is 30. It's 30 companies. It's 30? Yep. Okay. I'm like, let me just check before I say. I'm like, I think it's 30, but yeah, it's the top 30. Okay. So we talked about, now let's move into using these specific accounts, right? Okay. So we talked about a little bit about features and perks, but specifically, do you have some things that people need to be looking out for as far as things that can benefit them? So like the one that I really like, and again, this is going into savings again, but when I use my debit card, anything that's less, so like let's say something is $7.90, that 10 cents just rolls into the charge of my checking is $8, but that extra 10 cents rolls into my savings, right? So it's like getting home, like my grandfather.
Oh, so it's like a roundup thing.
Yeah.
So it's a little forced savings. So if it's $7.50, then it puts 50 cents. So
exactly.
So all of your debits are whole numbers.
Exactly.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
And so, what gave me the idea to look for it is that my grandfather, when he would come home, right, he had this big water jug in the corner, and he would come home, and all the change from the day went.
My
went
grandfather's was a big old moonshine truck,
right? But like enough to say that enough people did it back in the day, and we would go dump this thing out, at 6 months or whatever. It was like $150,
yeah,
$200, like, oh my gosh, like where did this come from? And all of a sudden it's like, I need a new car battery, and it doesn't feel nearly as bad. It's like, well, that's not actually that big of a deal, because I look over here and I see that I get an extra $150 in my account because I've been rolling the change up.
Okay. And that's also interesting. I like that because, one of my things is the merger of the old and the new. So they took grandpa's thing of just, coming out and emptying his pockets of change and sticking the spare change in the jar. And they turned it into, well, how can we make that the same thing?
It's cool.
They made it techie. I kind of like that.
It's good. It's good. And like you're not missing 13, 15, 72 cents a transaction. Like you don't even care. It's like whatever.
Right.
So that's a perk that I really like. So
got it. Other features and perks, a lot of it's going to depend on the kind of job you like, your lifestyle and stuff. So the perks that a self-employed musician might want are going to be slightly different than, say, a tech engineer living in Silicon Valley, right? How much online mobility you want, that, if you're an internet, let's say you're an expat, you're going to want the capability to move money internationally rather easily. Okay. Not all banks can do that. Certainly some of this, right. Some of them will specialize in that. So kind of depends on what you need. And so sit down and think through, as you were saying, that's one of the things that you need to do the research on. Think through, what actually do you need? How much online access do you need? How much ability to move money around do you need? Do you need people to be able to pay you? So you need to set up things like Etsy accounts because you are going to create, I don't know, waxed canvas tote bags and sell, that was
very specific, by the way. Waxed canvas tote bags.
I was looking at some earlier in different contexts. But, so you're going to be somebody who creates stuff, a creator who sells it on online platforms, right? Your different banks might have different integrations with some of these online marketplaces. Check around.
Yep.
Again, ask people in your industry who they use. Do they like them? And if they do or don't like them, why?
Right. So
also try to get somebody that's maybe like 5 or 10 years in front of you, because if you're getting the person that, I just signed up for this 2 months ago and it's been great.
Yeah.
Well, they don't know much.
You don't know Jack.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to me, and this is also, I think, applicable to rewards just in general. Because I'm always trying to game the system, right? So I got this card one time. It was like this debit card, and it was like, we'll give you 5 times points on groceries, right? We'll give you 3 times points on gas. We'll give you X amount of points on dining out, right? And so again, kind of tailored to my life. Well, I drive a lot. I drive around a lot, so that makes sense for me. Groceries or eating out, like I'm on the roads. It's easy for me to grab something that multiply. Okay, so you're like, wow, this is going to be great. Like if I just only use this thing, like I'm going to get all these perks and stuff. Haha, surprise. Most of those things have a cap on them, right? So again, when you see, you know what? I'm going to get this card that is going to give me 3% cash back. Well, it might up until $100, and that's good, right? So now you have to be like, okay, well now I'm at that cap, so now I got to go use this other card and got to get right. Try to simplify your life as much as you can, and find things that have ease of use. So like the one for me that I found very easy that I liked a ton was, again, actually going back to Chase, was they had just 1.5 unlimited cash back.
Right.
Straight, right? Doesn't matter what you do, where you go, how it goes. We don't cap it, whatever.
Right. You don't have to think about, is this a restaurant charge? Is this a tech charge?
Yep. And it doesn't look as flashy as some of the others, but it's consistent and you never had to worry about it. And then again, at the end of 6 months, you look, it's like, man, I got like $500 in rewards here, right? And I can actually just take those rewards and I can just apply it to my credit card and just, there goes my payment for the month. Awesome. Great. Wonderful. And then you just add that to what you would normally pay. And that's, so just don't, right. Banking is sales, boys and girls. Like you gotta remember that they're going to try to do as much as they can to lure you in. And once they get you in, lock you in, just like we talked about in the subscription episode, right?
But this is a better lock-in.
Yeah.
Right. Or you want it to be a better lock-in. Companies rarely do things just for the customer's benefit. There's always some reason why they want to keep you in their ecosystem, right? So just wanted to, I'm thinking about like going to the doctor, right? And it's like you go to the doctor and you say, okay, like you can go to the eye doctor. We got this test, we got this test, and we got this test, and we got this test, right? And you're a 24-year-old and they're like, we're going to set you up on the glaucoma test. Well, you're in this establishment and you feel like it's a medical and they're not trying to sell you things, except that the glaucoma test doesn't really make sense for someone that's in their early 20s, but it's an extra $60. Right. Like just ask questions every step of the way is what I'm trying to get to in this process. What are you laughing at? Nothing. No, just...
Do you have an eye doctor appointment?
No. Going to the doctor. Because going to the doctor and paying doctor bills, especially in the U.S., is a very complicated So we should do an episode on that.
There we go.
And
write it down.
I'm writing it down.
Guys, this is like a brainstorming session and an episode all in one. Okay.
Excellent.
Let's move on. So
once you've actually got the account set up, you want to get your direct deposit set up, and you want to get your major auto pays for your mortgage, your car, your credit cards, the major stuff set up. So the main thing you need to know for those are the bank sort codes and the so the routing numbers and your account number. Okay. If you're an international client, routing numbers are real. Then you need SWIFT codes. Basically, there are various banking money moving systems around, and these are all codes that are set up. So the systems have now been computerized. They used to be, Telegram. They used to be, handwritten, that sort of, right? And so there's a whole network for how, like airport codes. Like, so you have DFW and you have IAH and, the airport codes are grandfathered in from an old system. Same thing with these routing numbers and SWIFT codes. So, for instance, at my new bank, they have two different sets of routing numbers. One is for wire transfers, which are direct transfers into your bank, and the others are for ACH, which is something clearinghouse, automated checking clearinghouse.
Auto clearinghouse.
Thank you. So it's how checks used to run around.
Yes.
So the physical checks used to run around, which is why you will find the ACH number on your check. All right. So first of all, the bank will give you your ACH number or your routing number. At our bank, we ended up getting a routing number and a wire number, and then I got them mixed up, and that was fun. Basically, the money just got sent back from her because the wire didn't have anywhere to go, even though it was attached to the account number. But we'll discuss that anyway.
That's advanced banking.
It was less fun than I wanted to have.
Yeah.
But yeah, it got all sorted in less than 24 hours. So it's all good. So to set up all your auto pays and all your deposits, you're going to need the routing number, which is the far left-hand number on your checking account.
The bottom left-hand side.
Right. Your banker will also give it to you. And then you're going to need your account number. Usually when you're entering these things, they will have you enter the routing number, and then the bank name will pop up on the screen.
Yes.
Right. Verify that it's the right bank. Then they will usually ask you to enter your checking account number twice. So, just like you're resetting your password, please enter your password, please re-enter your password to make sure you get it right. Go through and set all those up.
Yeah, absolutely. Get that all taken care of. And I think the last thing that we touched upon it earlier, but switching banks, right? So when we talk about switching banks, one of the things that I wanted to bring up is that it does take a month. However, you have like this early push, right? Where you have all of the things that you can think of.
Yes,
in the
there's
beginning.
A lot of it's not as bad as if you go back to the mortgage episode, it's not as bad as filling out the application for a mortgage, but it's almost as much of a pain.
Yeah, it's almost as daunting.
Yeah.
It's almost as daunting. But you want to make sure that, people, like I always think of like the Geico commercials, right? It's like switch now and you can save 15% and stuff like that. If you're not happy, let's say that, if you're not happy with what's going on with your bank, don't feel like you just have to stay there because you've been with them for X amount of time, right?
That's actually one of the poorer reasons.
Yeah.
Like if you're really actually dissatisfied, because first of all, there's a huge convenience level to staying with the same. If your annoyance is managing to get over that convenience level, then it's pretty bad.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look around.
And also think about times where, someone has gotten a hold of your account, right? You went to the gas station and they cloned your card, and now all of a sudden you have hundreds of dollars worth of transactions at Specs, right? That you didn't make. And how do they handle that? How do they deal with that? Do they give you the money back right away? Do you have to wait a month? Like, what does that look like? So all those kinds of things are important. But I think now too, with, for example, like Google, when I go and buy something in a place I've never bought it before, and I go to like I got to get my card. I got to type it out, right? Google doesn't do that anymore. It's like, what are the back three of your card?
Right.
Type it in. All the information comes up.
Right.
The process is not as daunting as it used to be.
Correct.
And don't be afraid to rely on some technology to help you through that process.
Right.
Because you can move a lot faster, right? Now, not everyone feels comfortable in certain, right? Again, you get like, that's a highly generalized comment, but what works for you is what makes the most sense. And so for me, I'm just like, listen, if it's on the internet now, like assume it's going to get hacked, right? Like that's the way I have assumed.
If you're putting something on the internet, assume it can be found.
Right.
It's anonymous. Yeah. Assume. No. If you're not willing to have yourself unveiled for whatever it is you're saying or doing, don't do it.
Yep.
Right.
And Sean, our camera guy that is no longer with us, that now works in cybersecurity, has opened my eyes so quickly to the information that I thought would be protected. And he's like, oh yeah, watch this. And you're like, pull it up instantly. It's shocking, right? So you just gotta just assume. It's no different than if someone steals your wallet or you forget it someplace. Like that's where we're at now.
Right. So don't let those kind of concern. Again, if your annoyance with your bank has managed to overcome all these conveniences and stuff, then don't let some preconceived inconveniences stop you, because they're not as bad as they used to be, and they're not as dire as they seem.
So I see on here too, you have set up accounts for easy transfer to each other. Should be an external account setting at both banks. What do you mean by that?
Okay, so if a bank has any decent online stuff, it will have, oh goodness gracious, somewhere in the accounts when you're talking, it'll have some option for you to transfer money. Okay, and usually right now banks are using an app called Zelle, which is kind of sort of trying to replace the checking system a little bit. Think if banks had PayPal or if banks had Venmo. Okay, Zelle is not as user-friendly as the banks would like to think it is. It's becoming better, and different banks handle it differently, and so it might be easier regardless. So there'll be some option in there to set up funds transfers. You'll have an option to set up Zelle so that you can, like, say, pay like I could pay Ryan through that.
Yep.
Right.
As a matter of fact, you did last time.
I did last time. Exactly.
We have switched banks. This is different.
There will also be a setting in there, usually something like external accounts. So this is where you put the information for the account holder at your bank, Bank of America, has an account over at Wells Fargo. Okay. So I am verifying that this is my Wells Fargo account and that you can transfer money to, or you can transfer money from that account. Okay. After you go through the verification process, and they usually do it where they set it up. So, okay, you've told us that that's your bank over there. So we're going to do a handshake with that bank. We're going to put 2 deposits in that bank, somewhere, adding up to 100 cents, right? So we'll put 49 and 51 cents in there. You have to come back after those get deposited, and you have to report to us what those $2 amount or what those 2 cent amount were. That's how we verify. I think of it as two-factor identification on a password thing, right? So once you've gone through that process of verifying it, then transferring accounts from your Bank of America account to your Wells Fargo account is almost as simple as transferring it intrabank.
Yep.
Right. So go ahead and set that up, especially when you're in the transition phase, because I remember my mortgage, my car payment, my 2 credit cards, my gym membership. So you get all of that. So you go through all of the things that go on auto pay, and you're like, oh, great. You forgot the old subscription to The Economist that you had, right?
You forgot the water bill.
You forgot the water bill, precisely. Something like that. So you're going to want to leave a little bit of money in the old account to cover that, as we discussed. But also you want to have that pipeline between the 2 accounts ready for just in case. Oh my gosh, I totally forgot. I get this dividend check from this investment account over here, and I forgot to tell it to a deposit in my new banking account. Yep. now that $10,000 is, I'm just, again, pulling out numbers. Now that $10,000 is over there on the wrong account and I really need it here in this account that I'm actually using. Or, oh my goodness, I totally forgot that mortgage payment is paid quarterly and I forgot to switch it over because I was thinking monthly and it just came out of that and I need to be able to cover money really. So you want to be able to, for the first month or so, be able to transfer money between the accounts while you rebalance everything.
Yeah, definitely. Right. Awesome. I think that is it.
I think so.
Any closing thoughts for our life administrators?
No, as again, okay. Yeah, I'm a little hurt, people, because almost every week, Ryan comes in with what was it this time? Somebody was worried about Travis the dog.
Yep.
Because we recorded episodes when Travis had gotten out and then we got her back a few hours later, right? But when we posted the episodes, we posted them in reverse order.
Right.
And so it sounded like Travis had gotten out a second time.
Yes.
Okay, Ryan gets all of the feedback. I don't get any feedback. So Ryan's coming in today telling me that we had, somebody that was making sure that Travis was all right, which is great. And Ryan's the one that gets the questions of, follow-on questions and stuff. Y'all, Leslie at Life Administration, I'm totally happy to answer your question.
She can do it. She can take it. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. My closing thought as I wrap through this is I think, at least for me, if I could go back and tell my 20-year-old self to say, man, 0.1%, 0.9%, like it doesn't really matter. Just whatever. Just do whatever you want with your money. Like you're fine. Like you don't need to worry about that. And then you realize that 20 years has gone by and that I made the switch maybe 7 years too late. And so I want to say, whether you have $100, whether you have $10,000, whether you have $100,000, do something to get your money to be working for you.
Agreed.
Even if you don't think it's going to be a lot. And we've talked about the miracles of compound interest. You will learn that. So take my advice here. Don't make the mistake that I did, that I wish I could go back and say at 18, hey, get a savings account, right? At that time, get a savings account. You don't need to watch your money in your checking account grow and feel good about yourself, because really, like, that means nothing.
Right.
What really means something is getting your money into a mutual account, mutual funds account, getting your money into whatever, even if it's a CD, like just do something
that interest working for you.
Get interest working for you, and you have enough money somewhere. Like you have enough, even if it's $10, like I promise you it will be a decision that you'll be very, very happy with later on down the line.
Because 20 years goes by faster than you think.
In the blink of an eye. Honestly, like I can't believe it. I'm 39 now. I'm going to be 40 in May, and I just don't even know what happened. Mm-hmm. I mean, it feels like yesterday that I was a 22-year-old kid becoming a district manager, and I was, making some good money, but I was 22 and bought things that I didn't need and just
didn't bother to get anything working for you.
No.
What's 0.5%?
Yeah, what's 0.5, right?
0.5% in 6 months is nothing.
Yeah.
0.5% in 20 years?
That's something.
It's not nothing.
Yeah, it's not. It's something.
Right. And better yet, if you've done a little research and found a 3%.
Yep.
Even if you'd stuck $1,000 in it.
Yeah. And then you can leverage it into other things. Maybe you have I'm a tech guy, right? And so AMD stock has overtaken Intel for the first time ever. Well, I called that 2.5 years ago, right? So maybe you have some knowledge, and maybe you want to, maybe you throw some money into a stock. Maybe you find the next Amazon.
And again, even if it's only $100 that you throw into the stock,
yeah. Over the course of the long game, as long as the company doesn't fold, you're gonna make money, right? We're not talking about being a day trader here. We're talking about like, hey, this is a 10 to 15, 20, 25 year investment that you're gonna stick with for a long time. So that's just my final 2 cents. I just want to throw that out there because it can be frightening and or you think it doesn't matter.
But then there's the thing, when you're doing the research, looking for a bank and looking for a banking relationship, think long term.
Yep. Think long term.
Think
awesome.
Excellent.
If you are listening to us on Google Play, Spotify, or Apple Music, go ahead and give us a 5-star rating if you liked what you heard. Even if you didn't like it, still throw 5 stars on us anyway. I'm kidding. No, and leave a comment down below. That would really, really help us. If you're watching us on YouTube, please click the subscribe button and the little bell icon next to it, and leave a comment about Travis if you want, or just tag Leslie, do something like that.
I need to feel some love.
And if you can find me on Twitter at Ryan Taillon, RyanTaillon.
And I'm on Twitter at Leslie Loftus Tex, and Leslie at lifeadministration.com.